So the law of last thought means whatever you practice throughout your life, abhyasa, and if you were to give your mind and intelligence, you fix it on Krishna, only then you can remember Krishna at the time of death. It's like any of us writing a final exam. You can't say that I'll study for the final exam tomorrow, today, and hope to do well. So similarly, if you have to remember Krishna at the time of death, you have to practice remembering him throughout your life. So this is the lesson number 2 of this chapter, which is remembrance of Krishna at the time of death. Why is death so important, and why is Krishna talking about this in such detail? Because this whole exchange is taking place on the battlefield, and millions of people are staring death in the face. Then Krishna answers this further. He says, first is you remember me. Then he also tells how to attain me. And he gives 3 paths. We have studied each one of them. One is remembrance by Yoga Mishra Bhakti. This is not pure Bhakti. It is yoga with Bhakti. Even this is fine. There are many paths. If you want to follow Yoga Mishra Bhakti, that is fine. Remembrance by Shuddha Bhakti. Shuddha Bhakti is the easiest. That's what Krishna says. And that's the only time in the whole of Gita he uses the word Sulabha. Then he tells us how do we remember him by comparing the material world and the spiritual world. He says material world is temporary, dukkhalayam, ashasvatam, and a place of miseries. And the last lesson is devotion to Krishna. You can attain Krishna by bhakti. So he very clearly declares that bhakti is the supreme. And he tells us about path of light. When do you give up your body? If you give it up during path of light, you don't return back to this earth. If you give it up during the path of darkness, then you'll have to come back to this world. And then he ends the chapter by this very famous words, Vedeshu yagneshu tapasu chaiva, dhaneshu yat punya phalam pradishtam. What does it mean? Whatever pious credits you would have earned by reading Vedas, by doing sacrifices, by following austerities, doing charities, you will get more than all of them put together by bhakti. So this is a brief review, refreshment of the 8th chapter. Now we go to what is 9th chapter? That is king. Why is it called king? First is knowledge. So I will come to that, how this chapter resembles another chapter we have studied. First, let's look at king. So first is K. K is knowledge. So the first 3 verses gives us the glories of knowledge. He tells us what is the qualification to Arjuna to receive this knowledge, and what are the disqualifications for this listening to this knowledge. The second lesson is inconceivable relationship. How does Krishna relate himself to the world? And that's Aishwarya Gnana, majestic knowledge. And that's the reason why this chapter is called most confidential knowledge. So he describes to us, we will go through 8 verses where each verse he makes it clear that he is the Supreme Lord. But when we come to lesson 3, he starts with, there are many people, and this is called numerous types of worship of Krishna. And he gives us 2 examples in the verses 11 and 12, where it says, Avajananti mamudo. There are fools who still neglect bhakti, who still neglect me. Why is that? We will see. And if you neglect Krishna, what happens? We will see. Then he also tells us about 2 people who are divine and they don't neglect Krishna. So this is a lesson for all of us who want to be on the path of bhakti. And the verses 16 to 19, he describes 3 types of indirect worshippers. They are not driven by bhakti, but they worship Krishna indirectly. And these 4 verses describe Vishwatomukam worshippers. They are the universal form of the Lord worshippers. What is this? We will see as we go along. The lesson 4 we will be covering in the next class, where he again talks about glories of bhakti. And this is the most famous verse of Gita, and one of the only 2 verses which is repeated twice, once in the 9th chapter and in the 18th chapter. Manmanamava mad bhakto mad yaji namaskuru. So with this brief outlook, and once again, the highlight of this message is, this is like a pearl hidden in a shell. So unless and until we listen to this and try to understand, we will not get the essence of what is the highlight of this message. So please listen carefully. If you know this chapter, the most confidential knowledge, then it is like knowing exactly what Krishna is driving home with Arjuna. Here, to come to this most confidential, he has used the word Raja Guhyam. So I thought we must understand how Raj Guhyam becomes the most confidential. The first 2 to 6 chapters, Krishna talks about Atma Gnana, knowledge of matter, body, and soul. So this is called Guhya. Guhya is confidential. And what do we learn in this confidentiality knowledge? We learn that every living being in this world has 6 phases. You're born, you grow up, you end into middle age, you age, and you die. And soul is in a transmigration journey. This body, it gives up and it moves into the next body. This is the most, it starts with the confidential knowledge. Next is chapters 7 to 8. Here we study about Guhyatara. This is knowledge of bhakti, which is more confidential than Atma Jnana. That is why this is called Guhyatara. And what does Krishna tell Arjuna in this? He says, you can realize Krishna within you. That is Paramatma. So this is the second step. So Guhya, Guhyatara, and this chapter is Guhyatma, Guhyatama. This is the knowledge of pure bhakti. And this knowledge, Krishna very clearly says that I am the Supreme. After reading this chapter, if you still have doubts, then it means we have to go back and read chapter 9 again. Now, this chapter is very similar to chapter 7. And generally, we have seen even in the 3rd chapter and 5th chapter, when Krishna wants to emphasize a message, he follows it up with another chapter, which reinforces and emphasizes what he had taught in the earlier chapter. So what you learned in 3rd chapter as Karma Yoga, he reinforces in 5th chapter. Here, what we learned in 7th chapter, he reinforces in the 9th chapter. Both the chapters start with glories of the knowledge. There, Krishna says, Tat Shrunu, you should listen to the glories of my knowledge. Same thing here. He continues further. He gives us more inputs and he says, if you have to know this Guhyatama knowledge, what are the qualifications and what are the disqualifications? There in chapter 7, he talked about Krishna's relationship with the world. And Krishna controls the modes. So please surrender to him. Same in the session 2 of this chapter, yes. He's talking about the majestic knowledge of Krishna and how he is maintaining the relationship with the material world. It's a fascinating understanding. After this, then we will realize, I need to make an effort to understand what Krishna is saying. Understanding Krishna is easy, provided we make up our mind to listen and understand what he's saying. We have to connect with the message of Krishna. In the 7th chapter, he continues, he says, impious people don't surrender to me, pious people do. Similarly here, if we are to look at, I have titled it as Fools Neglect Bhakti, the Divine Don't. Similar thought process in the 7th chapter and in the 9th chapter. Here in the 7th chapter, the last lesson is surrender to demigods. Krishna talks about that similarly but he gives it at a more the knowledge of depth is the depth of knowledge is higher here. He talks about Mahatmas, he talks about Duratmas, he talks about Ekatvena worshippers, Pratakvena worshippers, Vishwatomukam worshippers, and gives us the clear understanding of what's the difference between a direct worshipper of Krishna and an indirect worshipper of Krishna. And then the ending of this chapter, like 7th chapter, is the glories of devotional service. So the message is very clear that this is the path which is easier for us to adopt because we are in Kali Yuga, where time is at a premium and we have many, many more other preoccupations, due to which we find investing time for Gita and scriptural studies is something which is very difficult to do. Whereas it should be the other way around. The material duties should take lesser priority. The spiritual knowledge and awakening should take higher priority. But this is how this yuga is, and we are all part of it. So with this brief background, we get into the first verse of this chapter. Most important verse, and because of this verse, the chapter has got the title Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam. Idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshyami anusuyave gnanam vignana sahitam yagnatva mokshase shubhat. Krishna says knowledge of bhakti and realization of Krishna is possible only by non-enviousness. Anasuyave. What's the translation? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence." So let's start looking line by line. Idam tu te guhyatamam. We have already seen guhyatamam is the most confidential, and he is now referring to idam in the first line and gnanam in the third line. If I put these two together, he is referring to the glories of devotional service. This knowledge, that is devotional service, is the most confidential. Guhyatamam. What does it consist of? It consists of 9 limbs. It starts with Shravanam, listening, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, and Sakya. And Arjuna is in the mode of Sakya. He follows whatever Krishna says. Now, why is this knowledge confidential? It's not that it is kept in a classified file. It's not available to anyone. Access is restricted. No, this knowledge is available to all. Gita is not a secret document. But the problem is, it's like driving or swimming. No amount of reading about driving and swimming is going to teach you driving and swimming. I hope you all agree and understand what I'm saying. To drive, you have to be in the vehicle. To swim, you have to be in the pool. To understand 9 chapters, bhakti, you have to do bhakti. That is why it is most confidential knowledge. In fact, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa used to give a very important example to help us understand what is gnana and vijnana, because Krishna uses gnana vijnana sahitam. Gnana means knowing that 2 sticks can light a fire. Gnana is applying the knowledge and making the fire. You take 2 sticks and actually light the fire. But vijnana is cooking the food on the fire and eating it. So that's the reason, the essence of why Krishna is saying this is the most confidential knowledge, because most of the people don't like to experience it. Pravakshiyami. He says, I will tell you, I will impart this to you. Anasuyave, one who is not envious of me. That is the most important qualification. Not all, by reading the 9th chapter, will get this understanding. Why? Because if your mind is not like a child, then you have some envy. Until and unless that envy is removed, you can't understand what Krishna is saying. Envy is the root of misinterpretation. Gnana vijnana sahitam. In 6.8, Krishna has used gnana vijnana truptatma. What did he say there? He says, knowledge of pure bhakti culminates in the realization of Krishna. In 7.2, he says, gnanam te aham savijnanam. I shall now declare to you in full this knowledge, which is both phenomenal and numinous. This being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know. So in the same line, he's saying, Gnana Vijnana Sahitam. I am giving you the knowledge, and I'm also saying that this knowledge is possible for you to acquire if you are able to practice it, realize it. How do we understand? Another example, Gnana is having the disease. Vijnana is the prescription of medicines to cure the disease. This is why Krishna says, Gnana Vijnana Sahitam. With the knowledge, apply the knowledge. Then you will understand. Yagnatva moksha se shubhat, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence. Shubhat means inauspicious activities. All that inauspicious activities brings to us is misery. So Krishna is saying, once you understand this, you will start, at least you will start minimizing your efforts to do inauspicious activities. You will try to focus on doing pious activities. So this is the, how do I connect the flow? So he's talking about knowledge, which is most confidential. And in the first verse, he has given us the qualification. He says, Pravakshayami anasuyave. I will tell this to you because you are not envious. And in the next verse that we are going to study, he is going to describe what is the nature of this knowledge. Very interesting verse. And this is where, again, the title of the chapter comes from. Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyaksha Avagamam Dharmyam Susukam kartum avyayam. So here he describes the 8 characteristics of the knowledge of pure bhakti. What are those 8 characteristics? Let's see. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge. And because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and it is joyfully performed. Let us look at what are these 8 characteristics. Rajavidya, it is the king of all education. Why is it called Rajavidya? It is called Rajavidya because it is the knowledge of the kings too. And the kings used to be called as Raj Rishis. They were kings, but very learned. They used to apply this knowledge to transform the entire society. That's why this is called Rajavidya. So knowledge of the kings and the king of knowledge. This is how you have to understand this. Raja Guhyam, we all have understood the word Guhyam. It is the most secret of all secrets. Why it is secret? Because it has to be understood only by experience. Experience and learning only will help us understand the essence. Pavitram idam. It is the purest of all. You can't get anything more purer than this. Uttamam. It is transcendental. It is not material. There are many people. Why Krishna is emphasizing this again and again is after reading Gita, after looking at the whole 700 verses, there are many people who still say Krishna is a human. He has a body like us. He passed away from this world. So how is Krishna Supreme Lord? So this chapter helps answer these people. Krishna says, either you believe, then come on to the path of bhakti. You don't believe, you continue on the path of atheist. I have no problem. Pratyakshaavagamam, he's saying, I will give you direct perception. So this is the knowledge through which we can realize Krishna in the personal form. It is no longer impersonal. He's saying, you realize me and you come to my abode. That is Goloka. Dharmyam, perfection of religion. There is nothing more purer than this, because he's saying, I will help you purify your contamination. I will help you walk the path of devotion and reach me. None of the paths you will get so much of help as in Bhakti path. That's why this is the perfection of religion. Susukam kartum, easy and joyfully performed. Prabhupada used to say jokingly that why Krishna consciousness movement is catching on and becoming popular is, as Krishna says, one, it is easy. Second, it consists of all the activities that are near and dear to us. First is chanting. That maybe people will take time to get used to. But second is dancing. If you see people singing Hare Krishna Mahamantra and the dance, it is hypnotic. You, even if you don't want to dance, you feel like dancing. So you have chanting, you have dancing, and you have feasting. Prasad. The most telltale signature of Krishna conscious movement, Iskcon, is the prasad. Wherever you are in the world, you will never be denied the pleasure of prasad. So it is easy and it is joyfully performed. You can't dance if you are not full of joy. So once you start dancing, when you sing Hare Krishna, it means that it is easy and you are joyfully doing it. Avyayam, it is eternal beyond the 3 modes. So Krishna is giving us the knowledge from where we can transcend the 3 modes. We can go above the 3 modes and get into the spiritual realm of understanding Krishna. This is understanding Krishna. That is the realization. That's why this is the purest of all religions. Next verse. Now he is giving us, he told us you should have, what is the qualification? No envy. Then he said, what are the characteristics of this knowledge? And now he's also telling, what is the disqualification of adhering to this knowledge? Very important verse. Ashraddhadhanaha purusha dharmasya parantapa aprapyamam nivartante mrityu samsara vartamani. What is he saying here? The faithless cannot attain Krishna. So one is you should not have envy. Second is you must have faith. Without faith, you cannot attain Krishna. Those who are faithful, not faithful in this devotional service, cannot attain me. O conqueror of enemies, Parantapa. Therefore, they return to the path of birth and death in this material world. Mrityu samsara vartmani. So now he's telling us, telling Arjuna that please realize I'm giving you this knowledge because you don't have envy. And what happens if you don't have faith? This knowledge is not meant for them. Ashraddhanaha purusha, those who are not faithful, they do not accept principles of religion. Dharmasya asya. When you have to follow the path of bhakti, you should follow the rules of the game. You cannot say that I will not believe this, I will not do this, I don't like this. No, that kind of picking and choosing will not help you realize. You can't say in the swimming pool, I would like to drive. When you're in the pool, you can only swim. So when you're path of bhakti, you should only make effort to realize Krishna. So dharmasya asya parantapa. Please give your total effort, have full faith. Now, any knowledge, any path can give us realization if we put effort. And now we are all here on a Sunday evening. We could have done any other job, but we are sitting here to learn and read, listen to Krishna. Why? Because we love Krishna. This is sadhana. This is gnana yajna. You are worshipping the Lord through intelligence. So Krishna says, do this. Now these people don't have that effort, that rigor to practice bhakti. Aprapyamam nivartante. What happens? They cannot attain me. Simple. They remain in the path. Now you may say, oh, well, what will happen to me if I don't attain Krishna? He says that also. You don't have to guess what is the result. He says that you are always going to be in this path of birth and death. Mrityu samsara vartmani. Now, there are three types of people Prabhupada describes. He says there are Kanishta devotees. What is the characteristic of this? The Kanishta devotees are, they like to listen to the God. They like to read Gita. They have, to some extent, interest in devotional service, but they are not fully into it. They are like, they're jumping from one flower to the other. They think it is, oh, well, maybe it is an empty praise. It could be an exaggeration. Who knows? Let me do what I know best. Let me do karma yoga and I will achieve my goal. So these are people who are not there fully. Madhyama. Now, these are the people whom we would like to emulate. They're not very advanced in understanding scriptures. For example, none of us are an expert on Gita. We are all beginners. We are trying to understand the message of Gita. But what is important for us is we have faith. So this is far, far better position than a Kanishta. He does so many things, but without faith or with half faith. We do so many things. We don't know the scriptures, but we still do it. Krishna says, this is far better to me. And third is, of course, Uttama. They are first-class devotees. We don't have to talk about them. They know the scriptures and they follow, they realize. So they are in the class of their own. We should try to move from Kanishta to Madhyama. Now, I'm sure all of us should have heard this story one time or the other, but then just to highlight what is the importance of faith, this is known as the story which is said, the boy who fed God. So there lived a small family in a village. They had a small personal temple at home, and they were great devotees. They offered prayers sincerely every day, offered bhog, and then only consumed the bhog as prasad. So such a family, one day the head of the family had to go out on town for duty, for some work. And he had a son whose name was Raman. He said, Raman, you are still young, but then I am entrusting you with this responsibility. It's very simple. I'll give you this, when I'm not there, your mother will give you this plate of bhog, which has all the items that we have cooked. Just take it to the God's room, offer it to the Lord, say your prayer sincerely, and make sure that the Lord eats the food. I don't want you to come out of the room if the Lord doesn't eat the food. And with this simple message, he leaves. And then, yes, it is lunchtime, the bhog is ready. And Raman takes a plate, goes into the God room, closes the door, offers it to the Lord, and starts praying earnestly. He says, oh Lord, please accept this prasad. 5 minutes happens, 10 minutes goes, nothing happens. He starts praying even more earnestly, thinking that maybe my prayers are not sincere and the Lord is not eating. When my father used to bring it, he used to eat it in 5 minutes. Today, why is the Lord not responding? And then nothing happens. The boy starts crying and he says, oh Lord, if you don't accept my food, I will not have food too. Now, this is because if I go out without you eating, my father, my mother, and whole family is going to beat me. And the tears, that's the beauty of a child. He's so innocent. He doesn't know anything. He just believes that the father has said the Lord should eat the prasad, and without eating the prasad, don't come out of the room. And he was earnestly making an attempt. And Lord listens to our prayers, provided we pray like this child, Raman. And the Lord comes out of the altar, sits down in front of him, and finishes the whole thali. And the child Raman is very happy. He comes out and tells, today, Lord has eaten all the food. There is nothing in the plate remaining. The whole family is shocked. Every day for so many years, we have offered bhog, but the Lord had never eaten. But when Raman went and offered it, he ate the food. So this is faith. Raman had absolute faith that the Lord will accept, Lord will eat. If we are like him, then we should also achieve Krishna. So this is the end of first session. Now we will move to the second section, that is Aishwarya Gnana, the majestic knowledge. So what is the learning here? We're going to learn about the inconceivable Lord. What is conceivable? Now, these are all man-made things which we can understand. We can see a car, plane, and we can say that, yes, these are items which we know. But if you look at a storm, cyclone, rain, these are inconceivable things. Nobody can replicate them. Nobody can understand them, how exactly they happen. So this is the next 7 verses are going to tell us the inconceivable nature of the Lord. The first verse here, most important verse. Each one of this verse is a gem. Maya tatam idam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina matsthani sarva bhutani na chaham tvesha avastitaha. What is Krishna saying? Now people ask, where is God? So Krishna is answering, I'm in everything. You decide where you want to see me. Translation: by me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. So this is the first method, first lesson. Where is Krishna? Krishna is in everything in this world, but I am not in them. The world is in him, but he is not in the world. That is the most difficult thing to understand. That is the inconceivable nature of the Lord. If not, there is no difference between Krishna and any of us. He also had come into this world with the same body, but he says, I am not in this world, even though the world is in me. We'll understand this through examples. Maya tatam idam sarvam. He says, I pervade this entire universe. So the message is clear. This is the relationship with the material world. You can see Krishna in everything around us. And he had said this even in 7.5. In 7.5, he said, entire cosmic manifestation is a combination of my interior and inferior and superior energy. He had said, Sutre Manigani Iva. I am like the thread of a necklace. You can't see the thread, but the whole necklace is held together by me. He's like that. Now he says, Jagat Avyakta Murtina. He's giving us another example, how he pervades the entire world. He says, I am unmanifested. What does it mean? Avyakta. You cannot see me through material senses. You cannot see, you cannot touch, you cannot smell. None of your 5 senses will help see Krishna. That is the inconceivable nature of Krishna. Matsthani sarva bhutani. And this is a line which he repeats 2 or 3 times going forward. So get it quite familiar with this. Matsthani sarva bhutani. What does it mean? He says, all living beings, this entire universe is within me. And he's openly saying that. Their existence is dependent on me. I am the cause of their creation. I live in each living being as Paramatma. There is nothing to choose between a cat, dog, insect, and a human. Every one of us has Paramatma. Now, this is the universal understanding. And once you understand this, there will be no question of ego. There will be no question of misbehavior, ill-treating others, thinking that I am superior, you are not. I am rich, you are poor. We are all equal in the eyes of the Lord. Na chaham teshu avastitaha. But the beauty now is I am not in them. He says, the world is in me, but I am not in them. Why? I am aloof and detached. Now, let's see how this is possible going forward. That's why Krishna is transcendental. He is beyond the material world. What are the 4 things that he emphasizes in this verse? He says, Maya tatam idam sarvams. I pervade the entire universe. Then he says, Jagat Avyakta Murtina. I am in my unmanifested state. You cannot see my by your material senses. Matsthani Sarva Bhutani. All beings are in me. Nachaham Teshu Avastitaha, but I am not in them. So this is how we start building our understanding of the transcendental nature of Krishna. Next verse. Now this is contrasting and challenging. In the last, here he's saying, Nacha Matstani Bhutani, Pashyame Yogam Aishwaram, Bhuta Brunnacha Bhutasto, Mamatma Bhuta Bhavanaha. In the last verse, he said, Matstani Sarva Bhutani. Now he's saying, Nacha Matstani Bhutani. Let's see, why is it so? Translation. What happened? So in the last verse, he says, I am in everything. The world is in me, but I am not. Now he is saying, yet Krishna is not in everything. So this is how you start understanding by listening to the opposites. And yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence, that is Yogam Aishwaram. Although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and although I am everywhere, I am not a part of this cosmic manifestation. For myself, this is the very source of creation. Mama Atma Bhuta Bhavanaha. I create this world through myself, but I am not in them. So how do we understand this? Nacha Matstani Bhutani. He says that everything that is created does not rest in me. In the earlier verse, everything rests in me, but here he says it doesn't rest in me. Now, all the learned sages, Prabhupada, have given us an easy way to understand this. They say that you should understand this as, I do not depend on them for my existence. Yes, we are all in Krishna, but he's saying you are not in me, because you must not think that just because we are part of Krishna, within Krishna, he is dependent on us. So he wants to make it clear to all of us that I do not depend on any of this material world for my existence. I am independent. That is the inconceivable potency of the Lord. That is how you should understand. So he is aloof and he is independent. That's why it says Krishna is responsive. You call him, he will come back. But Krishna is not responsible. Whatever happens to us happens because of our karma. But when we are suffering or when we are in happiness, you call Krishna, he will respond to you. So this is, he is aloof and he is independent. That's what makes him the Supreme Lord. In fact, Prabhupada quotes from the Shvetashura Upanishad. He says, Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate, Swabhaviki Gnana Balakriyacha. So Lord has multipotencies. They act in perfect harmony in such a way that everything is happens, creation, maintenance, destruction, but only by his will. Swabhaviki, it happens naturally. Lord doesn't have to struggle, strive, make effort, endeavor. It is just getting done. That is the supreme power that he has. He has instructed his energy. We will see this, it will come in the next verses, how this is done. Now, the challenging thing for us is that how do we understand this? He says you are in me, but then he's saying you are not in me. So it's like this. You take a magician. What does a magician do? The magician creates a magic. He creates a note out of thin air. But does that note reside in the magician? Think carefully. No. Because the illusion cannot reside in something real. If the magician could have created a, let's say, 100-rupee note, then he would not have been a magician. He would have been a billionaire, because he could have continued producing notes every minute. But it's an illusion. Similarly, the illusion of this world, it doesn't mean that the illusion is in Krishna. So that's the way you have to understand this. The illusion cannot reside in something real. Pashyame Yogam Aishwaram. Now he says, behold my mystic opulence, the inconceivability of my power. Now, this is another new way of understanding the meaning of yoga. Krishna is saying yoga also means Vaibhava, Aishwaram, that is divine. So even though he may be a person when he came into this world, he is not an ordinary person. He is the supreme person. That's how we should understand. Now, Another example to help us start understanding what Krishna is saying. Now you look at our planetary system. All the planetary systems are floating in space. The space is the energy of the Lord. But space is not Krishna. Space is only one of the energies of Krishna. This is his arrangement of making the impossible possible. And it works with clockwork precision. That's the inconceivable power of Krishna. Bhuta Brun. He says, I am the maintainer of all living entities. I create and I maintain. Nacha Bhutasto, however, without being associated with them. Mama Atma Bhuta Bhavanaha. By my own self, I am the originator, I give birth, but I don't, there is no connection between me and this entire living world. Now, how do we understand this? This is where faith comes. Again, the very famous story of the cobbler and the Brahmana. I'll give it in a very small nutshell. Narada comes to this Bhuloka. He meets a Brahmana and a cobbler. Both of them have the same question. Oh, please, when you go to Vaikunta, please ask Krishna when we will go and join him. Now, Narada goes to Vaikunta. Krishna tells him, just go and tell him that Krishna was busy trying to push the elephant through the eye of a needle. And watch for what the reaction is. So Narad Muni comes down. He tells this to the Brahmana. Brahmana says, you must be out of your mind. Krishna has better things to do. Why will he try to do this foolish thing? Now, this is Ashraddha Dhanaha. He is not having faith. Narada comes to the cobbler and tells the same story. Cobbler says, oh my Narad Muni, if the Lord can create a banyan tree out of a tiny seed, which extends through acres and acres of land, what is the big deal if the Lord is trying to push the elephant through the eye of a needle? That is the inconceivable nature of the Lord. And we can understand this only if you have the faith like a cobbler. The Lord is capable of doing anything because he is the supreme. Now he gives us an example. Yata akasha sthitu nityam vayu sarvatra go mahan tata sarvani bhutani matstaniti upadharaya. What is this example? Here it says, just as the wind. Understand that as the mighty wind blowing everywhere rests always in the sky, all created beings rest in me. So what is Krishna saying? Yata akasha, just as situated in the sky. What is situated in the sky? Vayu, wind. Sarvatrigo, wind is blowing always within the space. Now, how do we imagine space? You can imagine this as a bowl which is on top of us. And all of us are under it's like an umbrella. The bowl is holding the entire universe. That's an imagination. And where is this wind? Wind is within the space. Sarvatra go mahan. Now, it doesn't mean that the wind is stationary. Mahan means it is always blowing. It is never constant. So one cannot say that, oh, wind in one place is stationary and in the other place it is not going to have the same action. It is going to be the same across. It blows, and he says it is done nityam. This blowing of the wind is the fact, day in and day out. There's nothing which is going to change. So wind is not in one place. It is not stationary. It is mahan. Always it moves. But what happens to Akasha? Akasha doesn't get affected by the wind. Akasha says you are free to blow. You can blow hot. You can blow cold. It doesn't matter to me. So this is the example that Krishna is giving. Tata sarvani bhutani. Similarly, all living beings, matsthaniti upadharaya, they rest in me. Just like the wind rests in the Akasha, all the living beings, the entire universe rests in me. This is my true nature. Next verse. Sarva bhutani kaunteya prakritim yanti mamikam kalpakshaye punastani kalpadau vishrajamiham. So now Krishna starts talking about creation and destruction. Imagine, remember, we are in this section where we are understanding the inconceivable way Krishna connects with this material world, how he manages this material world. So now he's giving an example of creation and destruction. O son of Kunti, Kaunteya, at the end of the millennium, all material manifestations enter into my nature. And at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I create them again. So Krishna is using Matstani Bhutani, Nacha Matstani Bhutani. Now he says Sarva Bhutani. So this is a constant that he's been using. So now he says Matstani Bhutani, all of you are in me. Then the question is, if we are in you, what will happen to us when this Mahapralaya happens, when this whole world gets destroyed? So Krishna answers that. He says, Sarva Bhutani Kaunteya. Yes, all the material universe, all the material manifestations are within me. Prakritim yanti mamikam. They are enter into my nature. When do they enter? Kalpakshaye punastani. That is at the end of the kalpa. We had seen in the last chapter that Brahma, who's the creator of this universe, lives for 100 years. And in that span of 100 years, this entire universe is created. Where are the, so we have a lifespan of 100 years of Brahma. This is, and when he's destroyed, the whole universe is destroyed. So Kalpakshaye Punastani. When the universe is destroyed, when Brahma's life is ending, the whole creation is destroyed. Kalpadao Vishrajamiham. When Brahma comes back again, that is the birth of another millennium, by my potency, I create the whole universe once again. And what is the foundation of this creation? It is by the karma. And what does this karma leads to? The karma leads to we are born as either a bird, animal, devta, human being. So the Lord creates and destructs. At the end of the day, we are all destroyed, but we live within Krishna. At the beginning of the day of Brahma, we are all recreated again. Next verse. Prakritim swam avasthabhya vishrajami punha punha bhutagramam imam krutsnam avasham prakriter vashat. Now he's talking about his will. He has told us the process. He creates and destroys. Now he's telling how he creates, how he destroys. The whole cosmic order is under me. Under my will, watch this word. It is automatically manifested again and again. And under my will, it is annihilated at the end. So he is describing he gets this done all through his will. It's just like pressing a button. It's as simple as that for Krishna. Prakritim swam avasthabhya. Swam means my own, I. Avasthabhya is I enliven, empower, animate. Animate what? Prakriti, nature, which is also known as Maya. So through this nature, this whole world is created, maintained, and dissolved. Shrushti, Sthiti, and Laya. How do we understand this Prakriti? We know that it is made up of 3 gunas. We are all under the nature of these 3 gunas. It's like an operating system in a computer. That's how we can understand. Take it as Windows. Now, once the Windows is written and installed, it keeps running. You can run a PowerPoint, you can run a Word. Similarly, Prakriti does the creation, maintenance, and destroy. Another example is autopilot. You put the flight on autopilot mode, then the pilot can go to sleep. Everything is controlled by the computer. Vishrajami punha punha. He says, I created again and again. Bhutagramam imam krusnam. Bhutagramam means all of material existence, entire cosmic creation, everything about it. And he's also now telling us how it is done. Avasam prakriter vashat. Avasam means helplessly. Just because the creation is happening, do we have any role to play in that? Krishna says you have no role. You have no control. And the living entities have nothing to do with this process. It's all done by my inferior energy. All the activities are under the vashat of Prakriti. We are just following the process. And how is this happening? It's happening by Prakritim Swam Avasthabhya, by the will of Krishna. 9th verse. Nachamam tani karmani nivadvanti dhananjaya udasina vadasinam asaktam tesu karmashu. All this work cannot bind me. Now we should try to understand how Krishna remains aloof. So he says, yes, I create it, I direct it, through my will, it is created, but it doesn't bind me. All of us have a problem in this world. If I say my child, I am bound to my child. If I say this is my pen, I am bound to my pen. But Krishna is not bound to entire creation. Oh Dhananjaya, all this work cannot bind me. I am ever detached from all these material activities, seated as though neutral. Now, this is the learning for us. And Krishna always tells us what he does. He gives us an example and he says, you follow it. Nacha mam tani karmani. All these actions which are done for creation, maintenance, and destruction, nibuddhanti dhananjaya. They don't mind me. And na is coming from this line. They don't bind me. And Arjuna is called Dhananjaya. Udasina, that's the most important essence of this word. What does Udasina mean? Neutral, indifferent, nothing to gain. Krishna doesn't gain by creation, nor they get diminished by dissolution. This is the beauty of his power. Asaktam teshu karmashu. Asakta in Sanskrit is attached. Asakta is detached. How do we understand? By taking a real life example. Krishna plays the role of a judge. The judge is there to pass the judgment based on the arguments. He has nothing to support either this side or that side. One example. Second example is you take a mirror. What does a mirror do? Any object which comes in front, it will reflect it. It doesn't hold back anything. Does it do? Does a mirror say that you're looking beautiful? No, it doesn't. It accepts everything. It rejects nothing. It keeps nothing because it is reflecting everything. So this is how Krishna is, a judge and a mirror. That's the examples to understand how this work cannot bind me. Mayyadhyakshena prakriti suyate sa characharam hetunena kaunteya jagad viparivartate. Now, it is created by his will. It is, he said, is created by Prakriti. It is created by my will. And now he's saying, this is the last verse in this section where he says, I am the supreme director. Let's see how it is. This material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction. O son of Kunti, producing all moving and non-moving beings. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. So it is like he is the director. How he directs? Through Prakriti. Maya Dikshena Prakriti. Now this material nature, that is Prakriti, it consists of three gunas. We all know that. And he also says it is one of my energies and it is working under my direction. How does it work? Now Prakriti is inert. But the glance of Krishna, the moment Krishna wills, the process of creation starts. The Prakriti becomes active and the whole universe is created. What is Adhyakshena? Adhyakshena means he is the supervisor. He is the overseer. He doesn't do anything hands-on. Everything is done for him. That's why he's the controller of the universe, but through the agency of Maya. Now, how do we understand this? Lovely example. Now, let's say you have a rose in front of you. The rose has a beautiful fragrance. And let's say Ramesha is sitting in front of the rose. Now, Ramesha has a smelling power. So Ramesha can smell the fragrance of the rose. But what's the relationship? The fragrance and the smelling are detached from each other. Ramesha is not asking his smelling power to smell that fragrance in particular. There is a fragrance, he wants to smell it, he smells it. Neither the flower has gotten any influence, nor Ramesha has any choice, because if there is a fragrance, he will smell it. So this is how Krishna is. This is how he is directing this entire thing. He doesn't contribute directly, but everything happens. There is a fragrance, you smell it, you are happy. Now, two things can happen. When the flower is fresh, you smell the beautiful fragrance and you're happy. When the flower dies at the end of the day, it has no fragrance, or it may have a slightly putrid fragrance. That also is not in our control. We smell the good fragrance, we sell the not so good fragrance. So this is how Krishna is. Suyate means produces, creates. Sa characharam. Chara means all moving beings, non-moving beings, dead matter, this entire universe. Hetunena, by this reason alone. Hetuna is by my presence. Through my presence, Prakriti is doing this. How it is done? It is done repeatedly. Jagat is this world. Viparivartate. This world is created and annihilated again and again. It is Srushti, Sthiti, Laya. This is how Krishna gets this done. I am only the director. That's the message here. Maya Adhyakshena. My role is the director of this creation. Let's move to the next verse. Now we come to the lesson 3, where we are looking at different types of worships. And these 2 verses are talking about worshippers who do not believe in Krishna. And you may all be wondering, why is Krishna saying that people don't believe in me? After this verse, with examples, you will understand why Krishna is making this shloka. Avajananti mam muda manushim tanumashritam parambhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Fools or impersonalists consider Krishna as an ordinary human. So what is Krishna saying? He was there in this world. He did so many things, but still people did not believe that he's the Lord. Now he says, those are the people who are avajananti mamuda. Fools derived me when I descend into the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the supreme Lord of all that be. Well, we may also be wondering, why is Krishna making this statement? Let's go through, then you'll understand. Avajananti mamuda. Foolish people cannot understand me. Fools, they only know how to deride, despise, disrespect, disregard, blaspheme me. This word is a very interesting word. Avajananti. Jananti means you know the Lord correctly. In the verse 4.9, we had said, Jarma karma cha me divyam evam yogeti tattvataha. If you know the Lord correctly, then you get liberation. Ajananti. Avajananti. Now we know Jananti is knowing the Lord. Ajananti. You don't know the Lord. Ignorance. Avajananti is more dangerous. You know the Lord, but you know it in a wrong way. Misunderstanding. That's the most important mistake. Manushim tanumashritam. Why is that? What happens is that when Krishna was there amongst us, because he had a human body like you and me, people thought he is a common person. He is a friend of Arjuna. He is fighting this battle of Kurukshetra. So then he should be a normal human being. But what people don't remember and realize, recollect, is that Krishna created so many divine leelas. He killed Kamsa at an young age. He killed the poisonous snake Kalia. He lifted the Govardhan Parvat. All that things were being done by Krishna, even though he was in the human form. And who are these people? You'll be wondering, why is Krishna saying Avajananti Mamuda? You take Kamsa. Did Kamsa recognize Krishna? No. Did Duryodhana recognize Kauravas recognize Jarasandha recognize Shishupala recognize? No. So the entire part, so many people, in spite of having the opportunity to be face to face with Krishna, nobody believed that he is the Supreme Lord. So he calls them Mudas. Parambhavam Ajananto. They do not understand my transcendental nature. That is the problem. It's not the problem with the Krishna, it's the problem with us. We are not able to understand Krishna. Mama Bhuta Maheshwaram. What is Maha? Maha is great. Isha is controller. Mahesha is great controller. So he is the great controller of existence. Even though he was in front of the whole world, very few people like Pandavas, Arjuna, recognized the Lord and got the benefit. Now, if this video plays, I will show it. Now, what's the inconceivable power of Krishna is that he was able to sit as a kid in the lap of his mother Yashoda. At the same time, when he asked him to open his mouth, he could show the whole universe in his mouth. So that is the inconceivable power of the Lord. Let's see if this fellow plays. No, it's not playing. Bad luck. No, okay. It was a nice animation film where you could have seen Krishna opening his mouth and showing the universe. Maybe next time. Second verse. So this continues. He says, Moghasha Moga Karmano, Moga Gnana Vichetasaha, Rakshasim Asurim Chaiva, Prakrutim Mohinam Shruta. Now, what is he saying here? What happens to such fools? He says, those who are thus bewildered are attracted by the demonic and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. So If you understand Krishna, you will get the benefit. If you don't understand Krishna, you will not get the benefit. And moghasha. Mogha means waste. It is baffled, in vain. And this applies to all. Moghasha. Now, if you are a devotee and you still believe that Krishna in the human form is not the Supreme Lord, then your ardent desire of seeing Krishna will be defeated. That's why he says Moghasha. Now, if you are a karmi, Moga Karmano, if you do your karma and then you start thinking, why is that I'm not getting the results of my action? Because you are not able to understand the true nature of the Lord. So you will not get the benefit of your results. So even the karmi is not successful. Moga Gnana, a Gnani who is a philosopher, he is always studying hard, trying to understand what knowledge. Now they also don't understand, attain liberation. Vain knowledge, Moga Gnana. Why? Because Vichetasaha. Chetasa means intelligence. Vichetasa means lacking intelligence. They are deluded by Maya. They do not have the discrimination power because I am in front of them, but they are not able to recognize me. Why? Because of envy. Rakshasim Asurim Chaiva. They are attracted by demoniac and atheistic views. They assume the nature of Rakshasas, demons. Prakrutim Mohinim Shuta, having taken shelter of the illusory material energy. So every one of us has three natures. One is Rakshasi, we have wicked thoughts. Asuri, selfish thoughts. Daivi, good noble thoughts. So if you do not come to the realization that Krishna is the supreme, then you will be in the demonic and the selfish states. If you want to be in the Daivic state, you should start first believing in Krishna. Narad Muni says, if you do not worship Krishna, then you should be considered as dead. He is so direct. And he says, don't even talk to them. Prahlada in Vaman Purana says, one who is against the Lord has no value in this world. All their knowledge, penance, hard work, and efforts and fame are all fruitless and worthless. Even Albert Einstein, in our own age, when asked him, can you summarize your whole life in one line? He said, I am trying to discover the mind of the Lord. So this is how difficult it is for people to understand a simple fact that Krishna is the supreme. That's where the whole problem starts. Now we are coming into the next kind of worship of Krishna. We are talking about Mahatmanastu Mam Partha, Daivim Prakrutim Ashritaha, Bhajanti Ananya Manaso, Gnata Bhutadim Avyayam. Mahatmas or Ananya Bhaktas worship constantly with devotion. Most important verse, O son of Prutha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. We saw Rakshasim, Asurim in the last verse. We are now seeing Daivim Prakrutim. We have that faith to believe in the Lord. What is Mahatmanas Tumam Partha? O Partha, those who are not deluded, they are Mahatmas. Who are not Mudhas are Mahatmas. Prabhupada says Mahatma is one who has enlarged his heart. What does it mean? For a Mahatma, there is only one reality, and that is everything belongs to Krishna. I also am part of Krishna. Anuatma, that is any living being, takes shelter of Vibhu Atma, who is infinite, that is Krishna, becomes a Mahatma. Daivim Prakrutim Ashrita. This person takes shelter of Daivi, takes my shelter. They are protection of spiritual nature and not material nature. What is Ashrita? Ashrita is refuge. Now, when you are in trouble, whom do we take shelter of? Now, if it's a child, he takes shelter of parents. If you are a wealthy person, you take shelter of wealth. If you are a famous person, you take shelter of your friends, relatives, because you are a famous person. Your academics, your relationships, your wealth, all these are your refuge. But a Mahatma is one who takes shelter of only the Lord, who is universal and unchanging. Krishna doesn't change in the day, in the afternoon, or in the night. He is universal and always the same, always responsible. Bhajanti Ananya Manaso. They are always engaged in devotional service and they have no distraction. Gnata Bhutadim Avyayam. They know me even though I am in my human body. I am not a human. I am a supreme Lord. That is faith. Why Arjuna got benefited? Because he had this understanding. Gnata Bhutadim Avyayam. And this is exactly opposite to a Buddha who said, Manushim Tanum Ashritam. Even after hearing my nature, even after seeing all my divine activities, they think I am a human being. So if you realize the Lord as the supreme, then you get Daivim Prakritim Ashrita. Now comes this verse where I had said, I will give you an example. Let us go through this. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha drudavrataha namastantascha mam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. I have underlined satatam nitya. So that is the importance of regular habit of worshipping Krishna. Mahatmas or Ananya Bhaktas worship constantly with devotion. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. So what is Satata Kirtayanto Mam? They always glorify me. Now Kirtan is singing praise of the Lord. It could be many types, but Gita doesn't describe the type of Kirtan because Arjuna wanted to know the path, which path to follow. He was not interested in details of how to do Kirtan. Prabhupada says, for the benefit of all of devotees, he says, even discussing about Krishna is Kirtan. Either I sing the mantra, I can sing the Maha Mantra in different tunes, that is Kirtan. Or I even do, now we are reading Gita, this is also Kirtan. What does devotion do? It molds our heart and services shapes our life. Yatantascha drudavrataha. This is where I will take a pause. First, I'll explain the line and then give you the example. What is yatantascha? Yatantascha is efforts. So you put the effort with great determination. And drudavrataha. Vrata means spiritual practice. Yama is firm. Druda is firm. So firmly abiding. So if you strictly do this worship of the Lord daily, then you are worshipping him the way he has advised us to. Now, I'll give great examples and then we'll take my small example. You take Satya, Harishchandra. He never lied because that is Drudavrata. You take Ahimsa, Gandhi, Buddha, Mahavir. They all followed path of Ahimsa. Come what may, they will never deviate. Sri Rama, obedience. So this is Yatantascha Drudavrataha. Now, what is the example I was telling in the beginning of this class is Sneha, my wife, is down with dengue. So she is in the hospital. So I am at home trying to go through this class. That is love. We are not doing this because there is compulsion. It is not that Krishna is coming in, he is not a principal, he is not my teacher, he is nowhere to be seen. But if we have decided that we will go to do Gita today evening, you must do Gita today evening. That is Yatantascha Drudavrataha. And we are not doing this for anything but our own pleasure. This is self-satisfaction because any service is love. How can you show love to Krishna? By constantly remembering him. Prabhupada, who was a Mahatma, he used to preach the whole day, and in the night, he used to sleep for 2 hours. He should get up at 2 a.m. and work till 4 a.m. because he wanted to convert all the scriptures and give us something to read. That is Yatantascha Drudavrataha. Our example, just because my wife is not well, I could have found a reason to cancel the class. But no. Unless I am not well, then I have a reason to cancel the class. But just because a relative is not well, we should not take the shortcut. That is Yatantascha Drudavrataha. And we should not feel proud that we are doing this. It is not our effort. It is our desire and it is fulfilled by the Lord. Namastanchasta mam bhaktya. bowing down before me with great devotion. So when we speak about Krishna in Gita, we are bowing down before him in devotion. This is the purpose of our life. We are not doing this to please anyone else. We are doing this to please ourselves. What is the importance? Nitya Yukta Upasate. And we should do this continuously. It's not that we do it this time once. No, it is forever, perpetually. So Satatam and Nitya, he is emphasizing the requirement of doing it regularly, doing it continuously in the same verse. And what is the importance of this 13th and 14th verse? In Gita, there are 700 verses. And this is exactly the midpoint. If you divide 700 by 2, you will get 350. So 9.13 is 350th verse and 9.14 is 351st verse. And what great message Krishna has for us in this. He talks about devotion and he talks about devotee. How to worship him and what happens if you worship me. Daivim Ashritam, the Daivim Prakrutim Ashrita. We will get his shelter. And what are we going to achieve by this? Yatantasya Drudavataha, we are going to be under his refuge. That is what we all should be striving for every minute that we are alive. So we finish the second part. We begin the third part. Here he talks about indirect worshippers. This is a relatively easier section. We don't really have to understand. Here, Krishna gives us description of various types of worship, and we can go through it quickly. So what are the different types of worships? He starts in 15. He gives us the definition. And in the next 4 verses, he will describe what it is. Gnana yagnena chapi anye yajanto mam upasate ekatvena pratakvena bahuda vishwato mukam. 3 kinds of jnanis worship by cultivating knowledge. Others who engage in sacrifice by the cultivation of knowledge worship the Supreme Lord as the one without a second. There is a message. Thank you, Rekha. Now, others who engage in sacrifice with the cultivation of knowledge worship the Supreme Lord as the one without a second, as diverse in many and in the universal form. So there are 3 types of indirect worshippers. So first, let us look at this line. Snana yagnena chapi anye. Now, we have seen Mahatma. Now, Krishna is telling us about the anye, others. And why he's calling them others? Because they are into Gnana Yajna. And what are the types of Gnana Yajna they do? Yajanto Mam Upasate. They are all worshipping me. And there are 3 ways of worshipping me. What is this? First is Ekatvena. What is Ekatvena? It is also called as Ahangropasana. Don't worry about the Sanskrit words. What is important is, what is Ekatvena? These are people, they are unique Jnanis who worship the Lord in oneness. They think that I am also God. So this is, and Krishna says, I accept their worship too. There's nothing to choose between either of them. And in the 12th chapter, he gives us a more detailed description. Second is Pratakvena, Pratikopasana. This is easier for us to understand. All the demigod worshippers are Pratakvena worshippers, Pratikopasana. So we have seen this, and we will see this in the next class. He gives a description of the Pratikvena worshippers. And third is Bahuda Vishwato Mukam. These are the 3rd type of jnanis, and they worship the Lord in the universal form. That is, whatever you see in the world, they say it is Lord. If you see a mountain, it's the Lord, which is true. If you see a river, it's the Lord. Yes, it is true. So this is another type of devotees who worship the Lord in his universal form. And what Prabhupada has to say is that of the 3, this is the lowest, Ekatvena, because this man says, I am God. That's slightly difficult to understand, but then Krishna has no issues. He says, fine, if this is the way you want to worship, you can worship because you understand yourself and through that you're worshiping me. Second is Pratikopasana, and third is Vishwatomukam. So with this verse next, here comes the description of, there are 32 descriptions of how Krishna can be worshipped in the universal form. We just go through this. It's like, after these 4 verses, the thing that I was thinking is there anything in this world which is not Krishna? That is what you have to think of, because he has covered everything. In this 7th chapter, he gave us 14 examples. No, where all he can be seen. And now he's giving us further 32 examples to reinforce that he is the supreme. Let's go through these verses quickly. Aham kratur aham yakya, swadaham aham aushadam, mantro aham evagyam, aham agner aham hutam. Krishna is the various elements of all sacrifices. But it is I who am the ritual, the sacrifice, the offering to the ancestors, the healing herb, the transcendental chant. I am the butter and the fire and the offering. So he's saying, I am to be seen in all these things. Now, how do we connect? In 4.24, we had understood when Krishna said, Brahmarpanam Brahma Haver, Brahmagnau Brahma Hutam, Brahmaivatena Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhina. He says anything and everything that is involved in sacrifice is spiritual. Now he's giving us further most confidential knowledge. He says everything that is spiritual is me. Aham Kratur, I am the ritual. Kratu is sacrifice. And in the Shruti scriptures, they are described as Jyotistoma sacrifice, Agnistoma sacrifice. He says, any of the sacrifices you do, I am them. And look at this. There is no doubt. He's saying aham. Aham means me, I. So you cannot say, well, Krishna is not directly explaining. Right? He is now directly explaining. Aham ekna, I am the sacrifice. Now there are sacrifices which are krutu, and there are sacrifices which are yajna. Now, yajna is a sacrifice mentioned in the Smruti scriptures. They are Panchamaha yajnas. Swadaham. Swadaham means I am what is offered in it. So whatever offering you make, I am that. I am, now what is the offering? We give offering to the Pitrus during the Shraddha. He says all that offering is me. Aushadam. I am the healing potency of all the medicinal herbs. So you take any medicine, no cure is possible without Krishna being in it. Mantra, whatever mantra you chant, I am that mantra. I am in that mantra. Aham eva gyam, what is melted? You offer ghee, I am that ghee. Aham agner, I am the fire. Aham hutam, I am the act of offering. So this is how we understand Krishna. Next verse, even more interesting. Pitaham asya jagato, mata dhata pitamaha, vedyam pavitram omkara, ruk sama yajur evacha. What is this? Krishna is all pervading. He is the ultimate shelter and cause of all causes. I am the father of this universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I am the object of knowledge, the purifier, and the syllable Om. I am also the Rig, the Sama, and the Yajur Vedas. So he is continuing the description. Pitaham asya jagato. Everything emanates from Krishna. So he is Pitamaha. Pitaham. Now, what is the father's nature? To protect the child. Mata dhata pitamaha. He holds this universe when it is in the unmanifested form in his womb. That is why he is known as Mata. Dhata. We all know all benedictions come from him. He is Karma Phala Dhata. Pitamaha. He is the father of Brahma. So he becomes our grandfather. And what is the characteristic of a grandfather? He loves his grandchildren more than the father loves their children. Vedyam, Pavitram Omkara. He is Vedas. In Ramayana, it says, Chaki Sahaja Swasha Shruti Chari. God manifested the Vedas by his breath. So I am the knowledge in the Vedas. Pavitram. I am that auspicious purity, purifier, sanctifier. I am the syllable Om. It is called Pranava Mantra. The transcendental sound vibration. If you say Om, it reaches Krishna. Rik, Sama, and Yajur. All the three Vedas, Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Yajur Vedas, are Krishna. And Atharvana Veda, which Vedavyasa extracted from the Yajur Veda, from the Yajur Veda, is also Krishna. This is how we can understand him. Next. Gatir Bharata Prabhu Sakshi, Nivasaha Saranam Shuhrut, Prabhava Pralaya Sthanam, Nidanam Bijam Avyayam. Krishna is all pervading, ultimate shelter and cause of all causes. He says, I am the goal, the sustainer, the master, the witness, the abode, the refuge, and the most dear friend. I am the creation and the annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place, and the eternal seed. What is Gatir? Gatir is the goal. The goal of every worship is only Krishna. And Krishna is declaring that openly. He says, I am the Bharata. I am the maintainer. Prabhu, I am the Lord. He's the Supreme. Swami, I am Sakshi, the witness. He is within us. As he looks at good, he looks at bad. But he is the witness. He doesn't intervene. That is the beauty of being witness. So it is our choice. It is our consciousness, whether we do the right thing or we do the wrong thing. The abode. We all live in his abode. He is Nivasaha. Sharanam. We always have to take a shelter. The faster we realize, the better it is for us. He's the friend. He is one friend who does not act smart, who is constant, who is universal. So it's better to have Krishna as your friend than anyone else. Prabhava. He is the creator. Srushti. Whatever is created in this world emanates from him. Pralaya. He is the destroyer. Everything that is destroyed because of him. Sthanam, he is the shelter. Nidhanam, he is the treasure house. Whatever we get, it comes through him. Bijam Avyam, he is the immutable seed. So this is how he describes about his inconceivable glory. The last verse of the day. Tapami aham varsham nikrinami usrjami cha amrutam chaiva mrutyuscha sad asach chaham Arjuna. He says, Krishna is all-pervading, ultimate shelter, and the cause of all causes. O Arjuna, I give heat, and I withhold and send forth the rain. I am immortality, and I am also the death personified. Both spirit and matter are in me. Tapami aham. He says, the heat that is required for living in this world comes from me. I am aham varsham. It is I am who is causing the rains. Of course, Indra is the rain god, but it is through the mercy of Krishna. And how does rain happen? It's because of the heat. The water evaporates, becomes clouds, and comes down to earth as rain. Nigrahami ustrajami cha. I withhold and send forth both. It is in my hands. Amrutam chaiva mrutyuscha. Amrutam is immortality. Mrutyuscha is death. So his immortality and death. Sat asat chaham. He is the spirit and matter. Both are in me. Cause and effect. That is Krishna. With this, we come to the end of the section. Quick recap. This chapter is known as King. We studied about knowledge. What are the glories of knowledge? Krishna talks about the qualifications required. Anasuya way. One should be without envy. He describes idam gnanam, that the most confidential knowledge, that is bhakti, has 8 characteristics. And what are the disqualifications? If you don't have faith, ashraddhadhana purusha, then you cannot achieve and understand this knowledge. The lesson number 2 is Aishwarya Gnana, Krishna's relationship with the material world. What did we learn? Krishna says, entire universe is pervaded by me. Krishna creates this universe by his will, by his and he acts as the supreme director. He is not troubling himself in creation, maintenance, or destruction. Lesson number 3 is numerous types of worship. We studied about avajananti mam muda, fools neglect bhakti. Then we also saw Mahatmanastu Mam Partha, the divine don't ignore Krishna. We also saw there are 3 types of indirect worshippers. And in verse 16 to 19, we saw about Vishwatomukam, the universal form of the Lord worshippers. And of course, we will cover this in the next class. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please feel free.
Hare Krishna, Shyam sir.
Hare Krishna Chaitanya. Yes, loud and clear.
So I didn't quite understand the magician's example that you gave at 9.5.
Okay. See, what Krishna is saying is that you are in me, but I am not in you. Correct?
Yes.
Now, what does a magician do? Krishna is the magician. He creates the illusion. And what is the illusion? I gave an example of a rupee note. So as long as the magician holds the note in front of us, we all believe that he has got that 100 rupee note in front of us. But actually, does that note exist? Can he create a note? No, it is an illusion. So Krishna says the illusion cannot reside in the reality. So you're all in me,
Okay.
but I am not in you.
So which means we are all illusion.
Yes.
And we are all in Krishna.
Yes.
Okay.
It is very difficult to understand, but if you start
Yes, it is.
reflecting on it, then you will realize, yes, what Krishna says is so true.
Because we are also saying that Krishna is our creator,
Yes.
which means he has created an illusion.
Now,
Isn't it?
see,
I mean, we are saying this world is Maya. So if he has created this world, he has
right.
created Maya.
Correct.
Correct. And
Yes.
so we are, because we are also existing in this world, we are also Maya.
Yes.
But we are still in Krishna, isn't it?
Yes.
And he says everything, everybody, every person, every living thing in this world is in me. But
Yes.
I am not attached to them.
No.
I don't have any umbilical cord, so to speak.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Not umbilical cord connecting me to them. But I will always respond to their time.
Anytime. Yes. Anytime and always.
Okay.
That's how you
This is
understand.
still difficult to wrap the head around, but yeah.
See,
Thank you.
if you keep reading this purport, every time you read it, you will get a slightly one more inch of an understanding. But I agree, it is not easy.
Sure.
So now we should look at what does a judge do. Now,
The
judge is
reverse-
part of all the arguments, but he is not part of the argument.
Correct. He's only listening, and then he will sign off on the judgment.
Correct. So what is Krishna
More
doing?
so when there is a jury present.
So Krishna
Krishna
plays the
is
role of a
acting as
judge. Yes. Next example of a mirror. Now, what does a mirror do? It accepts everything.
It will reflect exactly what is put in front.
So Krishna is the mirror. And Krishna doesn't have a habit of keeping anything or taking anything. Does the mirror add to you or subtract from you?
Nothing. None of them. None of these
Exactly.
things.
Exactly. So if you put all these examples together and then start reflecting, Maya tatam idam sarvam, then you will say, okay, Jagat avyakta murtina. He is pervading all of us, the entire universe, but you cannot see me. You are in me, but I am not dependent on you.
Sir, in the Vishwarupa Darshana Adhyaya, he also shows Arjuna that everything is in him.
Correct.
And he is in everything also. So that is actually, even in this chapter, he says the opposite.
Yes.
He says the opposite of what he has said in the previous verse.
Correct.
So when you're looking at, I mean, this is just a reflection. It's not a question per se. When you're looking at things, you look out of the window, you see trees, flowers, animals. So in everything you should be. I mean, your faith should make you see the Lord in everything.
Yes.
And also that the Lord has all these under him.
Exactly.
Isn't it? So it is this equal to this, and so this equal to this.
Yes. That's why this title is most confidential. Raja Vidya Raja Guhya. And how do we make progress towards understanding this is, if you have faith, and if we go back to the cobbler story.
Yes, I was getting to that actually. I put that down as a point. Please carry on.
Yes. If you have faith, then every word that Krishna says, you will lap it up. If you have even 1% doubt, then you will start disconnecting. You will start saying, oh, can this be true? How can he say I am in him, but he is not in me? He is giving you an example, but still you are saying, no, I don't understand. Then until and unless you find a way to understand, Krishna also cannot help us.
So the way to understand is to have faith initially.
That's it.
As a basis.
Yes.
So and if the Brahmin in this, sorry.
No problem. See, Duryodhana was given the Vishwarupa Darshana. But he thought He's trying to put me in Maya. But when he showed Vishwarupa Darshana to Arjuna, Arjuna said, I surrender.
Yes, and he also apologizes to the Lord for treating him as an equal.
So ultimately, your decision is directly linked to your faith.
Yes, I understand.
Good question. Very good.
Also, sir, when you spoke of the Brahmin versus the cobbler,
right?
Ideally, the Brahmin would be more educated.
Correct.
And in a better position to argue. So isn't that why he's more argumentative? He's not more knowledgeable and supposedly closer to the scriptures, or having a better understanding of the scriptures or the Lord, for that matter. And so he's more argumentative. He says, how is that possible?
Yes.
Why would the Lord do that, and how is it even possible?
Correct.
Whereas the cobbler is saying that he who has created everything, nothing is impossible for him. So, I'm just an argument that more education is actually making you more argumentative and spoiling your faith.
See, it is not difficult to understand.
You are able to, because you want to question something like that. I mean,
see, this
I'm
knowledge.
Sorry, I'm not able to put it. I have noted it down as a point, but I'm not able to put it up.
No, I can understand what you're trying to say. Now, how do you communicate this? Is that why does empty vessel make more noise? Because it is not full. So the Brahmana is knowledgeable, but his knowledge is incomplete. The moment the knowledge is incomplete, then you have this nature tendency to argue. The moment you are knowledge, if you say I am knowledgeable, then the immediate outcome should be humility. Now, Haridas Thakur went to a village, gave a discourse.
Also could have been that his response also could have been the cobbler's response. What response the cobbler gave, Brahmin also could have given.
Exactly.
If he had the humility to accept.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Sorry, please go ahead with your Haridas.
So, how to see this? Brahmanas are, we have a tendency, or anyone who wants to claim that he's a Brahmana makes a mistake. Now, Haridas Thakur was a great devotee, a learned scholar. He goes to the village. He says, you can achieve Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. A similar Brahmana challenged Haridas Thakur and said that I have read so many scriptures, sir, in this Veda, that Veda, it is not possible. And chanting the Lord's name, you cannot go back to the Lord. Then Haridas Thakur said, in all humility, I am appealing to you, please believe this as the truth. The Brahmana gets wild. Then the Brahmana says, sir, I am so upset with what you are trying to peddle lie as half truth. I will say that we will lose your ears and nose if one of us is speaking the lies. Haridas Thakur says, don't make such comments because it is not required. If you feel you are not going to go back to Godhead, so be it. It is your belief. There is no compulsion. But the Brahmana says, nothing doing. I want to prove white is white, black is black. Then Haridas Thakur says, in all humility, I leave it to you. I appeal to you. I only can share my knowledge and realization, but I can take you to water, but I can't make you drink. And within a week's time, the Brahmana comes down with leprosy and he loses his nose and ears. So faith is very easy to understand, but very difficult to get.
Very difficult to, sorry?
Very difficult to have.
Yes.
Now, when I give you my own personal example, I got into studying Gita. I have never ever questioned even one full stop in Krishna Gita. For me, it is gospel truth, because that is now. How does this come? It is innate. It is born. It is not. It is not possible for someone to implement or implant. Yes, by sadhana you can come to the stage, but If you have faith, then you get into this Madhyama category. You may not have the knowledge, but you have faith.
Correct. Yes. Only your faith made you pick up, made you want to study the Bhagwadgita more. It's not with the intention of questioning or obviously it is the gospel truth, and because you had faith initially, that is what made you, or any of us for that matter, that is what makes us learn more and more. Although understanding will come
later.
Yes.
Yes. So we should be humble enough to say that Krishna has said, I must read, listen, understand. We have made our attempt. Karmanye vadikarastu. Now, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Srirangam, he saw a person, a man of modest means, holding Gita upside down and trying to make an effort to read. The whole community in the temple laughed at him and said, "You are a madman. Why do you want to read Gita when you don't know to even hold the Gita book properly? You know that you're holding it upside down." He says, "Sir, you're all learned people. I am an illiterate. I don't understand a word of Gita. Yes, since you told me, I now see that I am holding the Gita upside down. But what does it matter to me? What do I see in this Gita? I only see the front page. And in the front page, what do I see? There is a beautiful Ratha, a chariot, and Krishna is sitting there as the charioteer, driving Arjuna around. That itself is enough for me, and my eyes are filled with tears." And when Lord Chaitanya, who's there, heard this, he says, "You are the most pure devotee that I can ever have in my life. Because for you, without reading, you have realized. We are all trying to read and realize, but he has realized it even without reading." That is faith.
Thank you.
Thank you
also,
very much.
If you can just tell me the second type of devotee you said was Madhyama. The first and the third, Kanishta first.
Correct.
The third,
Uttama.
So we are all going from Kanishta to Madhyama.
We should see. Don't take the little word of Kanishta or Madhyama. The essence of Kanishta is he has all the opportunities, but he doesn't do it with full heart and mind. So that's why he's called a Kanishta. Madhyama, he is not the scholar. He doesn't know Gita or any other scriptures. No, it is not his claim to fame. He is very humble and he just says, "I want to read, I want to understand, and I will teach you whatever I understand." Now that is Madhyama.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If there are no questions, then let's all enjoy the remaining part of Sunday evening. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.